We could have been Splash Brothers before the Splash Brothers were ever invented, him and I. Our shooting games were unbelievable.
You know, him and Dell was probably the two best shooters I ever played with. I mean, when you're a shooter, you're a shooter. I mean, you have that feel and that arc, and all you need is a guy that continue to get you that ball in the right spot. And for Glen, you know, he scored so effortless.
Because he was 6'8", could shoot the lights out. He extended his arms on his shot so much that you could not block it. He could put it on the floor. He could post up with his back to the basket, take smaller guys on the post. Really ferocious competitor.
Glen, you know, is one of my favorite teammates of all time. You know, Glen is first of all, great guy, such a talent. You know, we go back when we were 16 years old playing against each other in those international games, so we knew each other very well. Love the guy, you know, he was a key player for us all those years.
He saw the game. He had a very high IQ. You know, he understood how guys was playing him, and he just, you know, he had that knack, you know. And then when I had the opportunity to play with a guy that could stroke it like that, I mean, you just look over and just lick the chops, because you know that, hey, 9 out of 10, if you give it to him, it's going in.
He was a fun guy to play with because you knew he prepared himself, and he could go off for 40 or 50 in a moment's notice.
Very talented, can catch and shoot. I remember in a playoff game playing against Steve Smith, it looked like they were playing horse. Steve Smith would come down, knock down a three, Glen Rice would go back and answer. You know, each and every time they would come down. And again, one of those players you could just sit back and marvel at.
Glen was an unbelievable player, but when he played for us, he was the best player in the league next to Michael Jordan. He was 27 points, 6 rebounds, maybe 6 assists. When we traded for him, I didn't realize how good a player he was. You know, we thought there would be maybe a step back. Well, there was no step back with Glen. He was just unbelievable as a player.
And you look at a guy like Glen, he had the highest average of anybody who ever put on a Hornets uniform, 26. And that's the type of pressure he was under every night. And he carried this team.
That's 13 points off the Rice, upstairs.
We pushed each other in practice shooting the basketball. And we often had a little saying, I've used it on the broadcast maybe before, we call it matches. When you shoot the ball and it fiercely goes through the rim, and the net sounds like you're striking a match. And we used to say matches because you're about to be on fire. We would often yell that out while the ball's in the air, while the other person was shooting, because we could tell, having shot together so much, we could tell when the other person's shooting whether it's going in or not. So we fed off each other that way, not only in practice but in games as well, you know, trying to challenge ourselves to see who could have the better night.
The way he could get to his spots, post up, lob dunks from Vlade. They used to have this play where he would throw it inside to Vlade and then run to the basket. Vlade would throw it over his shoulder. You know, they connected on it so many times.
He was fun to watch and made my game easy, making those passes and even, you know, throwing those balls on a rim and knowing that he's going to be there and dunking the ball. It was easy to play with Glen.
Award. Oh, what a play! Glen Rice, who can leap?
The All-Star game was in Cleveland, and for the first time, one of your players was out on the court in a leading role. And to see Glen Rice score 30 points and take the All-Star MVP trophy was just amazing.
One of the greatest individual performances, and arguably during the greatest individual season in Charlotte Hornets history, because he was just on a roll going into that All-Star game and maintained it during that game. And you know, the thing I remember about it after the contest was we're interviewing Glen Rice in the press room, and he was almost like a little kid because the questions kept coming that Michael had said, look, dude, you're hot, keep shooting.
Still on a run. Here's Rice, squares up, fires the three. Nobody's a better shooter, Jack, than Rice.
But he got going, and the rest of the guys on the East were like, hey man, let's ride the hot hand. And they just kept feeding him, and he kept hitting shots. And it was very similar to that season because he again, that season I would say is the best Hornets single season ever. And that game it was more of a continuation of what Glen had done throughout that season.
And a lot of people look, they look at history of Hornets basketball and they say a 92-93 team with Alonzo and Larry, that was the best team that ever played. But if you look at the records of Hornets teams, there was a 3-year period when Glen Rice and Anthony Mason were with this team, along with Muggsy Bogues and Del Curry, guys like Vlade Divac and some of the others. And then there was 3 years where the Hornets got, I think it was 46, 50, and 54 wins. That 3-year period was the best period of the Hornets as far as their comparison to other teams in the NBA.